Well, you're back at the Faculty Factory podcast, and I'm Kim Skarupski here at Hopkins, looking at Dr. Andrea Sikon from Cleveland Clinic. Hi, Andrea.
Hi, Kim. How are you?
I'm so happy to be looking at you, and I could already see you're so excited to talk about this, and I can't wait to get into it. All right, everybody, listen. Dr. Andrea Sikon, MD, FACP, BCC, PCC. She's at Andrea Sikon, CCF. She is the Enterprise Chair, the Ohio Division Chair, Department of Internal Medicine and Geriatrics, Primary Care Institute at Clinic, GIMGER. We're going to have all those on the website, but she's in the Center for Specialized Women's Health, the Women's Health Institute. She is the Executive Director for the Center for Excellence in Coaching and Mentoring. That's at Coach Mentor, CCF. She is a professor of medicine at the Cleveland Clinic Lerner College of Medicine of Case Western Reserve University, my alma mater for my PhD at the Cleveland Clinic. So she is all things coaching and mentoring. You should see her face right now. She can't wait to talk about all this. We have heard here at Hopkins for many, many years from a former department chair that we recruited from you all about your coaching and your mentoring programs. Elaine talked about all the mentoring programs years ago. Cleveland has a wonderful reputation for this comprehensive program of training, coaching, mentoring, and training trainers. So we'd love for you, Dr. Sikon, to give us a nice overview of your two programs, I believe, the Cleveland Clinic Center for Excellence in Coaching and Mentoring, and then the Advanced Peer Coaching Program. So if you just kind of like give us an overview of these and then help the listeners understand what they are, all the who, what, why, when, where, how, and kind of the higher level stuff. And then I'll try not to interrupt too much, but we'll ask some questions that everybody can really get excited about and contact you for more information. Take it away, Andrea.
Sure. Well, thank you so much for having me. I will say this is perfect timing. It is International Coaching Week next week. It starts Monday. It runs next week. So perfect timing.
Who knew? I did not know that. I'm going to have to move this episode to next week. Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Roger that.
And we're celebrating our 15th year in our center, so it's a year of anniversaries for us. So our Center for Excellence in Coaching and Mentoring is our umbrella, and we have kind of three areas of focuses of work within that center. I believe we're actually the largest and the longest lasting coaching and mentoring program in academic medicine. So we're really proud of that. And it really runs because of all the individuals that are engaged in it. So it doesn't run based off of just a few. It really runs off the collective and really all volunteer services. So in the center, we run two internal programs. One of those is a general coaching and mentoring program. It was our inaugural one, and it provides coaching and mentoring for all physicians and scientists at our organization. Been sustained over 15 years. And then we also, we have about 350 participants in that at any given time. People kind of come and go to the program. They can join. It's completely voluntary. It's completely free. And we provide training for that. And then in 2016, we realized that some people were craving kind of more advanced coaching skills, as well as because the training for the general program that we created is a day-long program. And so we developed this advanced peer coaching program. So that's in its ninth year now. It's an invitation-only program. It provides more intense coaching to developing and existing leaders. We also take referrals in for people who are really struggling to that program as well. So that has about 100 coaches, 150 coachees, and just 15 years of outcomes that are just really remarkable on the benefits of being in relationship with one another.
Wow. Can you tell us 15 years of data? I can't believe this is all volunteers. All right, so before you go talk about it, can you tell us how do you get the volunteers? How does that work? Because we all know we have lots of mentoring programs. Historically, it's always been mentoring. Coaching is more recent for us anyway. And And faculty want to mentor, just that their time is so pressed and they have so many competing priorities and demands that it's just a constant barrage of, will you mentor me? Will you mentor me? Will you mentor me? So it's one thing to take on mentees when you have a busy schedule. It's another thing, I think, to add a layer of, oh, you must go involve yourself in a program to learn about coaching and to hone your coaching skills and be in a coaching community and then start coaching people. Sounds like a huge lift. So can you first tell us about how do you build and convene community around volunteer coaches, and then maybe tell some of the outcomes over these 15 years?
So great question, because it was kind of a rate limiting step we thought initially too. And this was out of a response. The genesis of it all is that we went through a major restructuring in our organization 15 years ago. And we had just gone through kind of explosive growth geographically as well as in number. And so all of a sudden people used to know one another. They didn't know one another. And I really think that what they wanted was to be reconnected, to be in relationship with one another. And that's a secondary outcome that we see that is just persistent and I think way more impactful than what most of us likely realize. So the original request out of the needs assessment was for a formalized mentoring program. And so when I was kind of tasked to go find out what people wanted. We found this out. We assembled a task force and started to create a mentoring program. And what we learned is that we went to the literature. There wasn't really much out there in healthcare space. It was mostly in the business literature. And there were a lot of programs out there that had existed both internally and externally, but didn't get sustained. And so we did interviews, we looked at the literature, we talked to people who ran these programs, and we said, we want to build a program that's both successful and sustainable. And we discerned a list of like these 9 success criteria. And to this, we're still around 15 years later. So we think that we have it, they've been affirmed as well as in the literature to date since then from others' experience. And I'll tell you that one of the things I'll get into some of those discernments and how we built it, and really providing training and people who are prepared was one piece. And that took us into a whole nother space and world and area of focus within our center, which is training. However, you said, how can you engage individuals? So at that time we were within our Department of Medicine. And then my colleague Elaine Schulte from Pediatrics, was a little bit later on the path and got connected to us. Hey, you should go talk to Andrea. You know, she's working on something similar. She wanted to do it in the pediatric world. And so what we found is that, guess what? We repeated the needs assessment. Same. So what we did is when we actually launched organization-wide, because we found that, guess what? It didn't matter if you were medical, surgical, didn't matter where you were in your stage of development, if you were new, if you were junior, if you were mid-career, if you were late career, if you were an MD, DO, PhD, everybody was creating the same thing. And so one of the things that I think is a lesson learned, that when I hear other organizations now, like coaching's hot, right, out there in the medical space. And so people want to build programs. And I'll hear them say, oh, I think we're going to pilot it in a very small way, in a very small section. And to be very honest with you, I think if we would have done that, we probably wouldn't have been successful. The fact that we launched across everybody and we were inclusive, guess what? You might not find volunteers from your division or your department. You can probably find them from across the organization. And that's what we did. And that's how we started, and that's how we've been sustained.
Wow. So could I just pause you there for a second?
Mm-hmm,
Because that's a really important point you just made. I have was always trained kind of, it's almost like it's like a sneak attack of a program. Just say you're pilot testing it. Just say you're going to do a beta test of it. That way it gets around the people who are counting dollars and cents and who are casting doubt. Just say, oh, I'm just piloting it. It's just piloting it. So that's a really interesting point, Andrea, that be careful about going small, because then that might lead one to a false assumption that, oh, it failed. We tried it. It didn't work. It's kind of like it's an implementation thing. Maybe it didn't work for this division, this department, this timing, this season of what's happening in the
Yeah.
world and with global pandemics and whatnot, but give it
Yeah.
a beat, rethink, go big. Yeah, that could be a real
Yeah.
interesting way of questioning our normal ways of doing or the usual ways of doing things. So thanks for highlighting. That's a really, I think, important lesson. But go ahead, I interrupted you.
No, I think that emphasizing that point is really important. And it also, when we were all of a sudden looking for resources, if you're all of a sudden going to benefit a much larger pot, people were more willing to kind of dedicate some resources. Although we do continue, we run on really a shoestring, and it is volunteer. So to get back to your point, what else contributes? How can you get people to volunteer? So this came out in our outcomes and has been just affirmed throughout the years and continues to be. This was surprising to me at the beginning. So the coaches and the mentors in our program, so what we do is in all of our trainings, we do outcomes related to our trainings alone, and then we invite people to join the programs. And so we do periodic program surveys every couple of years to participate in the program. And so across the board, people, coaches, mentors get the same outcomes that those on the receiving end. So they're getting something out of it. And it's not just something like remarkable engagement, resilience, fulfillment, retention, like
Wow.
even academic achievement. Our coaches who theoretically, there's nothing in the program that should be directly
Benefiting.
connecting them to, that sort of like increased academic output. Yet they're reporting it as a result of likely, I imagine, the mindset shift that comes from coaching. So it's just fascinating to me how the outcomes, and I'll tell you actually, I was sharing once internally that we don't pay our coaches, and person on our team who is one of our fellow faculty said, stop saying that because you're paying them just not, in dollars per say. And so that was a good, reflection for me and reframe for me too. Like, wow. So, and that is also why we developed peer coaching. So when we first were looking to develop this mentoring program, another thing we found is that mentoring is great. It has loads of evidence out there now on the benefits of mentoring. And there's downfalls to mentoring alone, right? And are some things that, so we said, okay, how can they wanted mentoring, it's beneficial, how can we make it even better? And what we realized is that the limitations of mentoring oftentimes happen when mentees were not prepared, when they weren't prepared for the conversations, and the mentors are like, why am I wasting my time? And so, and unmet expectations, mentees would sometimes say like, well, they weren't helpful to me. Well, what were you hoping that they would do for you? And they couldn't necessarily answer that question. So that's why we realized, let's add peer coaching. It doesn't diminish the peer mentoring. It's just that people benefit more from a developmental network full of people, of multiple mentors and multiple roles, including a coach. So we put that peer coaching so that the peer coach helps people to reflect on their goal, define the goal, what motivations for the goal, action plan, and the action plan may include talking with a mentor. So you're interested in education. Okay. What do you want to ask that person? What are you hoping to learn from them? What kind of mentor are you looking for? They help them to prepare for that conversation and find the mentor in education. And then debrief from that. What'd you learn? How does it influence your goal? How does it influence your action plan? What other mentors might you need? You might need mentors in work-life balance or research or something else. So anyway, so it's a network rather than just a singular piece that I think also helps as well.
Well, you know what? This is so fascinating as I'd never thought about this. Who would have thought? Because I do coaching as well, and I always think of it in terms of the coachee, the client. What are they gaining from in terms of
Mhm.
clarity and insight? Like you're saying, motivation, action plans, accountability. And then what do I get from it? For, knowledge, insight, knowing myself, learning myself, engaging with, new technologies and trying to always learn to improve. So that's good for me, the coach, the coachee. I never considered that coaching could amplify mentoring and support mentoring. But what a beautiful illustration of when we all gain clarity and understanding around our goals and our vision and our purpose and our meaning, that will certainly inform the mentoring relationship and the communication there. So, oh my gosh, who knew? I never thought about it that way, that there's a direct connection or correlation between if I use a coaching mindset, engage in a coaching practice, that will make my mentoring better. That will make me a better mentor for my learners, my future learners. That spin-off is great. And then the other spin-off is who would have thought that by practicing coaching, I'm also benefiting my mentoring, and I'm further having a sense of meaning and purpose and engagement and finding a newfound, maybe a passion to transmit and help future generations. So this is, my gosh, all right, what are the downsides? Are there any down? This can't be this beautiful, this good, right?
It's true. I always say, like, when we hear the testimonials, like we record the objective, questions and stuff, and then we have like free boxes to fill in. And when we ask and we debrief people, I mean, it's like an infomercial. I say, like, it's just, they're transformational is the word we hear the most. And I will say, I think that's the other piece. So what we learned in that, the success factor list for successful programs, sustainable programs, was people needed to be trained. And so we developed our own curriculum at that time. And initially we were using someone who actually was part of the company that was coaching our executive team. And then funding ran out. And so they said, well, you're going to have to figure this out. And we were like, what? And then we did, we got our own coach certifications and credentials. And then really what was interesting is we didn't really find a coaching framework that was out there that embraced empathy and relationship centeredness as much as was really valued at our organization. It's like patients first is like the top value and top mantra. And we had a Center for Excellence in Healthcare Communication that had really done a beautiful job at helping to teach empathy for clinicians to learn to use with their patients. And so we said, wow, we really want this to be part of our coaching programming. And so that's why we developed our own coaching framework, our clinic coaching framework. And so then through the outcomes, so we developed that training to train people to join our general program. We train everybody together, whether you want to be a coach, a mentor, a coachee, mentee. We train them all in one session. Number one, for practicality's sake. Mm-hmm. Number two, people come to the program thinking they want to join one role, and then they can actually, wow, I think I can do this peer coaching, or actually I could do this. So they're all self-defined roles. They opt in. And so about 60% of our coaches are also coachees. So we found that people will join across roles. Yeah. And then you're hearing from one another about shared expectations. So you're hearing from your future mentors or coaches, like what the expectations are as a coachee mentee. So we just thought it was a beautiful way to kind of train people together. And then from the outcomes, we started to hear people telling us, I'm using these coaching skills, not just in my formal peer-based roles in these programs. I'm using them with my patients. I'm using them with my personal life. I'm using them with my colleagues. I'm using them as a leader. And so we started to develop programming that would contextualize it for people who wanted to be teachers or people who use it. So we have a coach approach for our annual professional review for chairs and directors to learn how to do this. And then along the way, people from other organizations kind of heard and said, well, can you train us? And so we started going to other organizations to train them. And then we started hearing from people. A third bucket of work we do within our center is to do advisement, both internally and externally. We don't run all the mentoring programs at the clinic. We don't do the trainee ones. We'll train the individuals in the coaching skills and the mentoring skills, but we don't necessarily execute and run those programs. And so others from across the country were coming to us. So we started hosting a series of CME that people could come in, they can experience our training in the first day. Then we would coach them how to develop a program in the second day. And then COVID hit. And so, and then we were like, whoa. And we said, how are we going to do this? And it's so relational. We can never do that. I think I heard Nancy Spector talking about this with Elam, right? We could never do this virtually. And one of my colleagues, who is a fellow faculty, she said, Laura Shoemaker, she said, she challenged me, she coached me right in the moment. Well, what could we do and how could this work and what might be possible? And so we made it virtual. And so when we made it virtual, we thought, why have separate trainings for folks that are external to our organization and internal? We just open it up. And now we have people in our last training, we had somebody from Malaysia and somebody from Singapore and somebody from like the West Coast. The time difference is the challenge for them. They're up in the middle of the night sometimes, but it's really bringing people together in healthcare, like across the globe, which is pretty cool.
And so kudos to you for thinking outside of the box. Kudos to your coach for nudging you to think, well, how else? And then also, congrats for opening your mind to, the fullest sense of inclusion and diversity. It's like including everybody. Like, who cares if it's not a homogeneous group of people in the same, very same division in the same department doing the same thing? That doesn't matter. Yes, there's context of the home culture, but when you're doing something like this, teaching principles and foundations and frameworks, it doesn't matter. You're a human being. Like when I'd start doing my WAGs, my writing accountability groups, people would say, oh, okay, I want to start a WAG, but do I need to I can't find anybody else in my department who wants to WAG with me. I'm like, well, why do I have to be in your department? It's human beings. Anybody who wants to write. You're not sharing advice on what to write. You're just literally holding yourselves accountable, clicking the button, get into the Zoom room and doing your writing. Somebody could be writing a cookbook, a blog, a website, a book, a grant proposal, an IRB, a chapter, a book. It doesn't matter. It's just the practice of be like doing yoga or whatever. So yeah, why not open the boundaries? That's one of the good things that Zoom has allowed us to disregard those, the brick and mortar stuff. So tell us what happens can you give us some sense, high level sense against how many sessions, how long are the sessions of these trainings? So people know that the investment of time to get up and going.
Yeah. So I'm glad you asked that, because for our general program, we actually started we're doing 4-hour trainings, and we really wanted it to be really highly experiential. We do a lot of now they're 1-day sessions. So either they'll be split into 2 4 hours over different days or one full day. And I will tell you that, again, highly experiential, so that people are actually experiencing the skills that we're talking about themselves, as well as practicing them. And then there's a lot of direct observation and feedback. So we have a very high faculty to participant ratio. It's 1-to-3. So we have one trained, what we call a mentor coach, who is trained in the skills. They're an experienced coach. They are also an experienced facilitator, and they also are trained how to mentor coach using coaching skills to observe and give feedback. So we believe that kind of construct allows us to pack a lot into a relatively compact session. We also do a 4-day training that meets, we're a certified training provider through the Center for Credentialing and Education. So if you participate in that, you can meet additional criteria and then get your board certified coach credential through that program. That's for our advanced peer coach program,
Okay.
and anybody can take that as well now externally. However, I will tell you that, and then we have ongoing development sessions throughout the year. We do monthly, bi-monthly, kind of 45-minute sessions over the lunchtime hour, virtual CME based. We do quarterly 90-minute sessions that are free for our internal folks to participate, to kind of continue to cultivate their skills. But something's better than nothing. And people will say, we know coaching's a profession, right? And we know that there is certification and credentialing, and you can dedicate your profession and your career to that. However, I will tell you that our general program still has remarkable outcomes, and it's based off of 1-day training. So I will tell you that something is better than nothing. And a lot of times I think in healthcare, we're not building from scratch. We're building off of, people already have a skill set around communication,
Sure,
talking with one another, empathy. The distinction is the asset-based thinking part. That's a huge 180 for people. It's very different than what we teach people in especially in healthcare and just human beings on how people think. I'm not going to listen for my understanding and tell you what to do. I'm going to help just stay out of advice giving. That's really hard for people.
oh my gosh, that's the hardest part of coaching for me is since I'm a big yacker and I like to talk, that's how I think. I have a sticky note on my monitor that says, wait, why am I talking? Because I just so want to help. And so I'm like, oh, I have a great idea, what I think is a great idea.
Yeah.
So, having that thought partnering and having that person, I don't want to be being the, I hold the information, rather, you have the information and help people find the information so that I'm equipping them to be successful without me. That's so hard, but you're so right. Can you tell us more about those outcomes? You mentioned a couple of them earlier, but what are the things you're measuring, or what other constructs are you seeing?
Yeah, so we measure kind of a sea of information. So we measure outcomes, and we do this actually even after trainings. And that's another remarkable thing. As an aside, training alone has significant outcomes. It's not just through the whole program. So you can get pretty remarkable immediate benefits. Training alone impacts burnout mitigators, which we ask about ability to find meaning at work, sense of value. Of course, things about the coursework itself, was it relevant to my practice? Was it able to be replicatable? And then confidence in their leadership, confidence in their ability to deal with conflict, confidence in their ability to build rapport with colleagues and use empathy and create accountability and all those kinds of elements. So we ask a lot of specifics. I think that some of my most favorite outcomes are the one I mentioned before, that people, or both actually, people using the skills across contexts. So they're using them and a lot of times when we have the trainings over different days, we give them homework assignment. Go home tonight, and whoever you live with, and if you don't live with anybody, call someone and use these skills, practice them, right? And they come back with these incredible stories, like, oh my God, it worked. You don't know. I text my kid, my husband, or my, partner or whatever. And just really remarkable things shift just immediately, with using the skills. That's why I love them. They're so practical. The other outcomes, I think, the coaches, the mentors get the same benefits. And then another one I love is in our advanced peer coaching program, people reported an increased, not only sense of happiness at work, an increased aspiration for leadership and attainment for leadership. So not only did they feel that they got a leadership role as a result of they even started to conceive of themselves as possibly applying for such a
That's
role.
huge.
So to me, huge, right? For diversity and inclusion, and how can we help awaken a sense of, yeah, I could do that in
Right.
people. That to me is
Oh
like
my gosh, I
goosebumps.
also never thought about that. So, Andrew, this stuff is so powerful. We have so many leadership programs, obviously. Um, and we hope that the faculty we train will aspire to be leaders, but frankly, we survey some of them are like, I'd never want to be department director. I would never want to be a dean. No way. And maybe it's because they see the current people doing that and go, oh my gosh, it just seems so overwhelming. And I can't imagine that sense of burden. But gosh, learning coaching and getting that newfound sense of confidence around a new skill and then seeing immediate application and how that has an immediate transformation, I can absolutely see how that would turn on some switches, flip some switches, turn on some light bulbs, go, wait a minute. Oh, that position, that leadership position does not need to be done that way that's doing it. Or maybe I can reframe the way I'm looking at that. And now that I can do this, really rethinking choices and opportunities because of a shift in a 1 day or a 4 day training to open up gifts and talents that maybe you didn't even know you had. Brilliant. Love it, Andrea.
I will tell you, I am struck. I've been in, we've trained 2,500 people. I've been in every single training since the start. I've sat in on thousands of coaching conversations. I am struck. I mean, we're talking about researchers that are NIH grant funded. We're talking about, neurosurgeons and transplant surgeons, people who do like remarkable things. The self-doubt that people carry on, the imposter syndrome, and males and females. I'll tell you, that's the other shocking thing for me too. I'm a general internist, so I'm always, I look at the cardiothoracic surgeons at the clinic, and I'm like, I'm sitting there coaching them, and I'm thinking to myself, seriously? Like, you're doubting yourself? Like, like, what's going on here, right? So it is a way to connect, like, human to human, like the shared humanity. Like,
Oh my gosh.
we're all in this together. We all have these blinds, and even myself, like, I've been at this for 15 years, multiple certifications, and I teach other people how to do it. And guess what? It still works on me. It's not like it's magical in that it's real. It works. It's authentic. And every time I laugh, because I'm like, okay, I know exactly what you're doing. Like when somebody says something to me, they're coaching me, I'm like, yep, that works. Yep, you're right.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Social comparison. Isn't that's just the kiss of death, comparing our insides to other people's outsides and thinking, well, they must have it all together. And I hear so many faculty saying, oh, I know I'm not as productive. I'm not generating the scholarship. I'm nowhere near as productive as my colleagues. And I said, well, how do you know? Well, because I can see, I can look at them. It's objective. I can tell how many papers are ready. I can tell. And so then this, further line of, well, why do you think that is? And that whole just doubting yourself and questioning your value compared to some objective indicator without realizing that what you see on the surface of that, you have no idea what's going on the other side of that. And you can't just look at those objective criteria and make assumptions and then compare yourself to that. So that awakening that can happen every day. This whole idea of in coaching, if you meet someone and you meet them 5 minutes later, it's not the same person. We are constantly moving and growing and changing, and every day new opportunities, every conversation, new opportunities. And I could just see your enthusiasm, and I just want to run on over to Cleveland and do this. This is just such a wonderful gift. I can't imagine. I mean, I know it has to have for 15 years now, the culture, this is how we do business around here. This is the expectation. You start hearing the questioning and the non-judgment and the listening for values and the curious questions. You kind of pick up those kind of habits and learn, oh, these people have been through the program, they've been through the program, that there's an expectation. This is how we interact. This is how we mentor. This is how we coach. We don't direct, we ask questions and become curious. That's got to be a whole mindset there. So kudos to you. I really love it.
Well, I can't, absolutely. And there's still, I always say we're human first, coach second, right? So there's always a natural kind of return to the median, or the mean. And so, yeah. And I will say though, exactly that. I love when I was just on a search committee and the person who was chairing it and running it, he just did all of those things that you just said. And I was like, oh yeah, he was in one of our trainings. So, I just like when you see it embodied, it's so phenomenal. And we were trying to shift the culture to a coaching culture. And it is now one of our 4 expected leader behaviors. Inspire and coach is one of those. So moving the needle. And what you said before, I think is so important. So as a leader, and when I have my chair hat on, there's a lot of things that I can't change. Of course, I try, right? System things and funding and those kinds of things. I always think, what can I do in this moment? And it's such a gift to listen to another person, to truly listen, not listening to like jump in, to truly listen. And then as their chair, I can call out their strength. I can call out a value. I can call out something that is meaningful to them. That's like an instant gift that I can give them in that moment that doesn't cost anything. Like, it's beautiful. And sometimes that's all we can do. And it's not to say that we should stop trying to change, systemic issues. It's that it feels empowering for me as a leader in that moment, that I can do something right now, and I can, while I'm helping to kind of change the system on a bigger way for people. So
what a transformational leader. Wow, Andrea, you are a transformational leader. Listening is as close to loving as you can get. I mean, when someone looks at you and realizes, oh, you are listening to me. This is all this time together, this half hour, this 50 minutes, this 1 hour together. It's about me. You're not looking at your phone. You're not looking at your email. You're not gazing off to someone over my shoulder. You're truly listening. And those examples you just gave, oh, you're listening to understand me because you heard that subtext. You heard what I didn't say. You linked what I just said back to something I said earlier. You watched my body language. You noticed what happened on my face when I talked about taking care of kiddos versus writing papers and how my affect changed. You noticed those things. Those, as you're saying, Andrea, are so beautiful. They're gifts that we don't experience on a daily basis in academic medicine, or probably any industry for that matter. We're all so hustle, grind, hustle, grind, hustle, grind, go, 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 always 100 steps ahead, running around like we're on fire. So to calm our systems down and to actually share space that is just one-on-one, that in and of itself, it's powerful. And I love how you are reminding us that it's not only benefiting the recipient, that it's both of us, that mutual connection, the relationships. To me, it reminds me of the back in the way, way, way early days, sitting around the campfire at night and just telling stories and talking. That connection, that is so primitive. It's just part of who we are. And I love how you built this program that reinforces that. And I know it has not only the wonderful outcomes you're measuring, but for your patients and for the families of the patients and for staff and for everyone involved. So I think everybody should take the Cleveland Clinic Excellence in Coaching and Mentoring program. Wow.
Well, thank you for so much. I will add one additional thing, because as you were talking, it really, the other piece and the gift of listening is empathy. And I'd be remiss if I didn't remark on that. And I will tell you that you're absolutely right. In healthcare, especially, we're taught to listen to patients. We're taught to empathize with patients, not one another necessarily. In fact, it's kind of discouraged in
Right.
our training. And so that is something that's a big game changer too. And I found a study recently that it was a large nonprofit surveyed over 900 U.S. employees across different domains, including healthcare. And they found that leaders, executive leaders and middle management leaders that used empathy regularly had reports that were more engaged, felt more valued, more likely to stay. They were 40% more likely to stay, 50% more innovative, 40% more engaged, and they turned around and they were more inclusive and empathic and collaborative with their colleagues. So it's like a beautiful cascade. It's that cultural element of, what are you prioritizing? So I always say, a lot of leaders mistakenly represent, empathy, that's a soft skill. No, it's one of the most important skills, right? Listening and empathy, two of the most important skills that you can have. And, how can you help people to rediscover autonomy and self-determination and that values alignment and trust, and, to be supported and to grow? It's called coaching is the how. Coaching helps our discrete skills that take it from being like, wow, that would be nice to have, but how the heck do I do that? To, okay, these are skills. If I do these things, I can create those outcomes. Like it's concrete. And I think that that's the other beautiful piece. It takes it demystifies it. They really work.
Wow. And if you think you can't measure retention, satisfaction, engagement, you can measure those things. And that costs money.
Yep.
When we lose faculty members, when we can't keep them, that's almost close to $1 million to replace someone. This makes fiscal sense as well as human sense. Talk about our strategies and strategic priorities. It's a winner. I don't see how you can lose with it. Huh.
We were actually, so our survey 2021, 2022, we did, 2020, 2021, we surveyed members of our periodic program survey of our general program and our advanced peer coaching program. We had 197 people in that say that they stayed at the Cleveland Clinic as a result of their participation in the program. Doing the math, like you said, that's in the literature, it equated to $133 million saved. So we were featured in Becker's. We're actually used as a teaching case in the International Coaching Federation for the value of coaching within organizations. So that peer-based model, you get a twofer. You get double the benefit. Plus, both of those, the retention was equal in coaches and mentors in the program as it was in coachees and mentees. So it's doubling the benefit if you can do, and it doesn't take a lot. Is more better? Yeah, right. The more practice you get, the longer the training, the more sophisticated the coaching. However, people can take away, like in the moment, like you said, just like listening without interruption. That in and of itself is a skill. It's one small coaching competency, yet it's one of many. And whatever you can get into a little bit of training, that's the other thing that I try to tell people. Something's better than nothing. Just jump in. You're going to see these incredible benefits, and you're going to get an engaged community that wants to come together around this. So, so just put it out there and jump in, is what I try to encourage people to do.
So again, thank you, Andrea. This has been wonderful. I'll let you have the final word.
Coaching is transformational. However you use even a fraction of the skills, learn it, jump in. It's going to make you happier as an individual. It's going to transform your world. So just get the coaching bug and get out there and do it.
Hello there, Faculty Factory podcast listeners. It's your podcast producer, Casey Callanan. Just wanted to let you know that as of May 1st, 2024, this podcast has had more than 93,000 total downloads and YouTube views from listeners in 98 different countries. And the Faculty Factory website, facultyfactory.org, has drawn nearly 45,000 web visits from users in 122 different countries. This is an international platform, and we want to invite you to be a guest on our show. So we just want to hear from different faculty around the world, and this is our play to you. Please reach out if you'd like to be a guest or to nominate someone in our academic medicine community that you think we need to hear from. Visit the Contact Us page on facultyfactory.org to send us a message, or contact Dr. Skorupski directly at kskorupski@jhmi.edu.
Thanks for tuning in to Faculty Factory Podcast. The mission of the Faculty Factory is to build and support a community of leaders in faculty development who share tools, resources, wisdom, and encouragement in service to our faculty members, schools, and institutions. We encourage you to go to facultyfactory.org to find out more. Get in touch with me, ask me any questions. Maybe you want to be interviewed on the podcast. Thanks for tuning in to Faculty Factory Podcast. We'll see you next time. The Faculty Factory podcast and website is sponsored by the Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine Office of Faculty. For more information, visit facultyfactory.org.